introduction. I think we're going to have a slide come up in a minute that's going to show us where everyone's coming up for the panel session. But yeah, guys, if you'd like to come up and start joining me, hopefully. Oh, I wonder, is there going to be a button for us to actually press, do you think, Wayne? The only thing they told me is don't press any buttons, so...
It is.
Here we go.
No, you have to sit under your name, Brian.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. I mean, that was really fascinating and a huge, great array of different perspectives and different stages of things that we're having. But the way I was thinking we could play things for this sort of section of the day, we have a good amount of time available, so we can do a mix of panel discussions where I can be putting. I've got a whole bunch of questions that I'm looking forward to putting to you all. So there can be some questions from me, and we're very happy to take questions from everybody in the audience too. I think maybe we'll sort of start off looking around a little bit more generally around the market. And if you have questions around how you might think in your industry or in your region of the world, and sort of get some sort of insights from there, I think those could be some really great questions to start with. Maybe some more technical stuff a little bit later on. I believe there are GSMA staff who've got, there we go, who've got microphones there. So if you do want to ask a question at any point, just kind of stick your hand up. If I don't spot you straight away, wave a little bit more, but I will get you. And then perhaps if you could let us know your name and your company name when you ask your question. And that could be to the whole panel or to just one person, and we'll see where we get to. So I think maybe if we could kick off, I think it was really, personally, I really enjoyed seeing some of the sort of perspectives from people who've been involved in this market for a long time, people who've been coming in kind of newer to it, to kind of see where actually are we now in terms of evolution. I mean, Rob, would you mind sort of kicking off? Because Barclays, you've been very pioneering with wearables.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a few years. We've been testing out various types of devices, different form factors, different price points, just testing all those sensibilities with our customers. And as we bring on new partnerships, we're seeing the effect of watches, jewelry, coffee cups, key fobs, different designs and price points. So we've been playing around with this for quite some time. I mean, I say playing around, we're very serious about delivering this. We're seeing growth beyond the contactless. The slide that I showed before showing the contactless growth, we're seeing growth in adoption of our products that's accelerated past that curve that's currently there. So that gives us a good indication, I think, of the adoption that we're starting to get, the awareness of customers of wearable tech and how actually they're getting comfortable with wearable payments. I think that I feel like we're kind of on the verge of hitting the mainstream. And we've seen that from a lot of other banks, particularly in Europe, starting to pick up this technology and also do their own testing and launches into market. So I think we're on the verge. What it takes to get us over there, I'm not sure. But the quantity of what we're delivering at the moment is looking very good. And adding in additional functionality for us we see is key. So really building out the value proposition for the customer. So we're not just enabling payments. That's where we started. Then we're doing payments with fashion, but also putting in potential other use cases. Could be access control. It could be things like that actually give more value to the customer.
Okay. So it's sort of, it does seem like it's a really interesting time, and I think, Wayne, it was really perfect timing to think of now to do this event, as I sort of think maybe a year ago it all would have felt very early. Now it does sort of feel as though it's sort of moving forward and we should all be paying attention. But I'm going to pass on to Brian now to kind of sort of say, you did cover kind of how you saw the market quite a lot in your presentation, but is this the year? Is it further ahead? Are there things that you feel need to be put in place first?
Is this the year? Yeah. I think the way we look at it is it's just a constant evolution. So you've got to be working with companies like Barclays, like Tappy, etc., to know what's coming next, and then to see how is that relevant to us as a business and the kind of customer base that we have and the kind of retail and distribution that we hold. So and again the biometrics comes after the simple tap, and then what's next, so you have to keep abreast of this stuff. Timex doesn't have the largest budgets against perhaps some of our competition, so we have to choose our battles wisely and see which technologies are most relevant to us and what will get a return on investment. I mean, again, there are companies out there that can spend millions upon millions of dollars, and they have smartphone sales that would support making some mistakes. We don't have that benefit, unfortunately. So, but again, thankfully we're well connected into this space. We're talking to all the right people, and I really do believe that this whole convenience factor with contactless is going to make a massive difference. And I really loved the example of the coffee cup. I mean, it's like, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you have? And it only encourages people to take a reusable coffee cup with them as well. So it's all it's fast evolving, and I'm sure 3 years from now we'll be having a very different conversation.
Okay, so it sort of started to get there. Valeria Shimalto's been involved with cards since the very, very, very beginning, and I can see from what you were saying that the chips that you've been putting together and the modules are getting smaller.
Smaller and smaller.
I guess they're more flexible. I mean, where do you see things at this stage? It's clearly kind of, I guess is it an evolution of capabilities? Or?
Yeah, definitely it was a large evolution from the banking smart card form factor up to the very thin and flexible product today. But yes, I think that so the ecosystem is in place, and we need to have some technical challenge and to bring new ideas, new form factors for the end users that they can use in many devices, because we feel that really the hidden technology is the best way to deploy a technology, if it's hidden. And yes, this is where we are with this smaller and flexible form factor, but also maybe just a chip, and then there is integration after that. So yeah, it's going to a decrease of form factor, definitely.
Thank you. And Andrea, you guys are definitely at the leading edge here. I think just as we've all got used to the ideas of biometrics on our phones, and we've been sort of tracking the deployments of the biometric cards, and now onto the watch straps. And in terms of biometrics, I guess we've been talking of wearable payments at very leading edge, wearable biometric payments, we're moving forward again. And I think you said you're sort of moving towards testing. But where do you see in terms of when this will be a normal thing to have wearables with biometrics? Are we still a long way away, or?
Well, I mean, before it's proliferating the marketplace, that will probably be years. But as I said, we're hopefully into piloting of biometric wearables already this year. But I think the world is always getting ever faster. Everything that happens is faster solutions for this and that. And even within payments, contactless is of course speeding up the pace of transactions tremendously, and it's adding a lot of convenience. The challenge has been that with that convenience comes some limitations, both the transaction limits and the security concerns around it. Actually, there is a market opening up for protective wallets or cards on top of your contactless card in order to avoid skimming, etc., which is mostly a perceived fear of a risk with a contactless card. Kind of biometrics adds and speeds up this drive towards convenience by adding a second dimension, which is the security. And that's what I find fascinating.
And Wayne, I guess the fact that you decided to call this event right now means you think the time is right. And I know you've just launched your wearable token platform, which sounds as though it's something that's going to make really quite a big difference to the market. How do you see? Are you seeing? Is this going to be a year that everybody comes rushing to sign deals, or is it still early days? Or
Yeah. So in terms of timing, this is key. We've seen contactless payment on cards for quite some time, and we've also seen smartwatches also making a huge move, like the Fitbits of the world, Garmin. They've also been making these type of capability in their smart activity devices. And we realize that the timing is right, but you don't have that market demand to create this need yet. So in order to create this market demand, you really need to have a lot of options out there for the customers to select from. So if I were to only be able to use one Fitbit to pay with every day, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a massively adopted product, because not everybody is going to want to wear that sort of device every day. Until it's like a card that, okay, it's a norm. It's like, why wouldn't you have a plastic card in your wallet? Because everybody has one. You could have a card art to differentiate, but I guess these days people are not so concerned about card art as much anymore. But having a device that you like to wear every day makes a difference. And if we can create an ecosystem of a lot of these watch brands, or not just watch brands, but devices, like they could be keychains, it could be things that you wear, you carry every day, things that you like to have on your pocket every day, then I think it makes a huge difference to create mass adoption. So timing is only because we're able to create that effect of that mass adoption with brands and devices that we could integrate, that you could really carry every day. So it's key, because timing is now, because we can create that.
do you see, I think I'm going to ask everybody along this sort of, so some will have more, do we see, in terms of driving the adoption, is it going to come from, and Rob, I would hope you've got some perspective on this, in terms of the people who have been coming in early buyers of Apple Watches, etc. It's a very different market to the people coming in with their BPay bands. I mean, my kids were one of the first wearers of them, and they were kind of quite nice and indestructible and quite cheap, so that was all quite helpful. Do you think, in terms of taking it to this next stage, is it going to be the younger people? Are there different demographics? Is it different regions of the world, perhaps, that might be driving things forward next?
For me, it's driven by the contactless adoption in the country that's going to push this forward. We know that we over-index with millennials in the UK versus some of the older generations who are open to this technology, as we know that they all are, with mobiles and different ways of doing things. So I think that will drive that as that proliferates into those channels. But to Wayne's point, it's, even for those markets, it needs to be a desirable product. So people are only going to use something that they're comfortable with, and they think that's going to look good. And I think there's also a part that us as a bank can play to make sure we are giving our customers who bank with us, all the options of how they want to pay. So we very much believe at Barclays that a customer should have a choice. If you want to pay chip and pin, or contactless, or wearable, or mobile, or whatever it might be, you should have that option.
Good point. And from Timex Group's point of view, you have an array of brands for different markets, but do you see stronger likely uptake amongst different demographics, or?
I think because we often, well, certainly from Timex perspective, we work at a mass level, so we have people of all ages buying Timex, and even children, for example, who parents want to provide a means of paying for public transport or something like that without parting with cash. And so you mentioned something along those lines in your own talk. So for me, and you mentioned it yourself, it was inexpensive. So of course this is where Timex likes to play. We like to offer good value for devices, and we operate in mass channels. So if we can if we can bring in technologies that the masses can take on board, they may not adopt it immediately, but if a strap on one of our watches has it anyway, by default, or a line of our watches has that, then they can begin to use it, they can trial it, and so on. And I think there is a bit of a mental switch between taking a card and using that contactlessly, and then actually and how that evolves into other devices that people will then use. But again, word of mouth, just simply seeing people pay in different ways while you're stood in a queue behind them, I think that adoption will actually roll out very quickly. And of course, the terminals are all in place right across pretty much most of the world these days. So it's just waiting for that little switch or that step in people's minds to move forward. So I think the timing is perfect. And it's coming. It's going to be coming quickly. I say next 3 years will be a very different conversation.
And do you think is design going to be critical? I'm feeling very awkward today because I do own wearable payments devices, but I'm not wearing any because as yet I'm still waiting for the one, I guess, that's mine, that I'm going to keep on my wrist and wear every day. So,
well, technology, I think, is at a stage today where people like to change it. It's not something that you keep for years. I don't actually know how long the average card use is, but like think about some of my cards. Usually have 2 or 3 years out of a card.
That's 3 years.
But nobody wants to wear a wearable or a watch. They become quickly obsolete, or fashions change. So there's this fast turnaround, which means also that the evolution in the technologies can evolve that much more quickly, on wearables, because people are replacing them more quickly than, say, standard cards. So, yeah, I don't know what the real answer is, but we see the opportunity, and we want to play in that space so that we can learn as we go. And but design, of course, watch design is subjective. What I think is a great watch may not be what you consider to be a great watch. And so, and again, as Wayne mentioned in his opening speech, selection is key, and is also the bedrock of the watch industry. I mean, we're used to I think if you look at the number of SKU for Apple Watch, for example, there's probably 4 or 5 these days. At any one time, Timex has at least 260 products in the market at any one time. So, we're used to carrying, a lot of, different designs and constantly refreshing these kinds of things.
Valerie, Damon, do you have any input? Sorry, Wayne, were you trying to?
Yeah, I was like, Brian made a good point about payment feature, the payment capability, the function don't go obsolete in a year or two. We've been making payments in ancient time, like been trading. There's just different ways of making payments. So this function actually is there to stay, as we all know, and it's also good and safe for watch brands who are not from that tech industry to follow through a function that will stay, because they're not up for making new development work and it's exploring new tech all the time and take these huge risks to just have a short period of life cycle of their products. So it's quite important that they understand that. And also Brian made a good point about the pricing is also key. Watch companies are not like tech companies where they're up for the best and the latest, but they're only up for usefulness, and they're used for design and all that. So if you go for the most advanced technology all the time, you always end up having to pay a lot of development cost, and then if the life cycle is short, then wow, you just spend a lot of money and then you couldn't get them back at the end. So it's important that we understand that, and watch companies do. And that's why they've come on to use this feature. And also, Valerie, in your slide, you also mentioned about there's a difference between a passive chip and an active chip. Passive chips are usually a little bit more cheaper than the active chip, more cost effective. And it hasn't been easy for us to work on a passive solution. But I was determined that in order to have a mass adoption in the watch industry, because of the price sensitivity on their margin structures, it has to be passive and it has to be easy. Consumers don't want to be charging so many devices all the time. They want to actually wear a watch, slap it on the wrist in the morning and go, and not worrying about, oh, I forgot to charge my watch. What do I do? I can't pay with it now? Then, oh. So every morning when I wake up, I must wear that same watch, not because it looks great, I mean, it looks simple, but it's because it has that feature that I need every day. So if I forgot to wear that watch, I just feel uneasy. Oh, it almost feels like I'm missing my wallet or a phone. So that also drives the, I mean, most people probably didn't experience that yet, but once they've purchased the product with payment capability, and it's so easy and convenient, I think they can't live without it anymore. Then if those brands are rolling out with more styles and more selections, great. And I could put that same credit card into multiple watches that I have owned, then even better. So I think that's what I want to get at. Like it creates this awareness because of all these points I just pointed out. Yeah.
Sort of that sort of multifunction or multi-problem solving bond that sort of starts to form, I guess, too. Yes, it's sort of both design and the convenience factor is sort of coming together. So.
And I think that definitely the passive technology is here really to bring flexibility to the designs, to the makers, because it's easy to integrate, it's not touching to all the architecture of the devices. And also it's a good way to populate the feature in really different models. And to answer your question, you asked regarding, is there any category of people who will be really reached by this use case? From the deployments that we did, there is each time for one category a solution. So meaning that for different categories there will be different solutions. You will have the sportsmen that love to have their wristbands to go running and they just have to pay in contactless without wearing anything. You will have the persons who will go to festivals and so on. So different users have different focus and different point of consideration, and they will find their own convenience with all the different models that we could build with the payment feature.
Sure, and Andre, I guess sort of looking from the biometrics point of view, do you have insights at all? Are there different age groups? Are there different customer groups that prefer that higher level of security? I'm wondering if that combination of allowing the higher value contactless payments potentially by bringing in the biometric security as well, does that bring in, is it people who are older and perhaps more concerned about the security of systems, or does it actually bring in the younger groups? I don't know if you have any insights on that.
Well, the expectation of proliferation of biometric solutions is actually towards high net worth individuals and corporate customers, etc., to start with, because costs are going down over time. And that's where, you know, the first wave is expected to come. But over time, it is expected for sure to kind of broaden into every age group. And like I said, millennials are very much open to technology and will probably embrace this very early, especially in the context of wearables, which is kind of the ultimate delivery of convenience. Right? And I think on the adoption side for wearables and biometric wearables in particular, I think that to Wayne's point, you know, cost is very important, flexibility is very important, passive units will therefore fit the best, and probably, you know, by introducing these solutions without any connection to the watch itself, but only in the, for example, straps, will enable a very fast, hopefully a very fast adoption, because it will also enable these solutions to be retrofitted to existing watches.
Definitely.
That's a huge boost to volume potential.
There's a lot of nodding in agreement there. Would you like to comment, Brian?
Wouldn't it be great if you could put a Timex strap on a fossil watch? So,
Yeah.
you know, so yes, of course. I mean, huge opportunities there.
But it does make the technology accessible. So if you have an existing timepiece that you love and treasure, you can just replace the strap, and it's
It wouldn't
actually
be a fossil then, obviously.
no, maybe you say that, Brian, not me. But it's an easy cost entry if you want to just spend whatever it's going to cost to buy a Timex watch strap by itself, and you've got, it may be quite an expensive watch, but you can enable payment without spoiling the aesthetics of what you want to keep. You don't have to buy a new watch to get payment, you just get a strap.
Just get the strap, absolutely. Do we have anybody in the audience who has a question that they would like to ask? Oh yes, okay. If we've got there's a gentleman just here. Just going to bring over a. Sorry, there's a light reflecting into my eyes, so I'm not quite sure. Here we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you all for giving an impressive presentation. My name is Chen, and I work from the automotive industry, working in a company called China Europe Vehicle Technology, which is an R&D center for Geely. I'm quite curious that if you have any plan about integrating the contactless payment into the vehicle, because from before I can see many use cases which we can use contactless payment, such as in the car sharing or for paying for parking, paying for charging, or there are more and more Android-based infotainment system. So maybe in the future we can just use the contactless payment in buying some apps or subscribe some more services. So I really want to hear the suggestions or opinions from you, or do you foresee any difficulties from your perspective? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, actually. I think the whole sort of moving into the automobile industry and connected cars and payments, and moving that in with wearables as well. Wayne, would you like to?
Yeah, well, so connected cars has always been a big part of digital payment, and we've seen card networks like Visa have also been putting a lot of efforts into that. I don't know how we can relate our wearables to connected cars at the moment. We had thought of like putting NFC capability to open up the car locks, but because the car infotainment system, the console already has probably like a display screen, so most likely those connected cars are already deployed out there in the market right now. I know that Visa is also tied up with Sirius XM and like the infotainment system, so you could already like touch the screen and start making all sorts of interactions of payments, but I don't know how there's going to be a relationship where the wearable can do a payment as like so that infotainment act as a pause and pay like that. I don't think it will work like that. So maybe Valerie would probably know a little bit more how that works.
Definitely. So there is already a trend to have the access to the vehicle with your wristbands. So this is the first step. But to come after that to the connected car, definitely the connected car will be connected with and gives you the chance to have entertainment. So you could select the music, purchase the music, or purchase additional, services for your cars, just for the time you are running. And you could do this purchase with your wearable or with other payment contactless device you could have on your side, just by presenting it in the contactless infrastructure of the car, and then doing remote transaction with the service you are buying. So you could just, purchase some horses, when you have a car.
A traffic jam, maybe?
Yeah, and so, okay. So there are some opportunities like that are in progress. And it needs a bit of infrastructure behind to have all this connection from the car to all the banking systems. But yeah, definitely this will come.
Rob, is that something that I don't know if you're allowed to talk about? I can't imagine that Barclays isn't looking at the...
So it's a very broad topic, right? So connected cars, as the gentleman will know. There's loads of different solutions out there. So already, you know, in the UK, you drive in a car park, it logs your plate number. You have to go to a machine, pay, put your number in, and then drive out again. We already have toll systems as well, where you automatically, it just bills you digitally. So we kind of move into a digital payments world and out of wearables a little bit. So combining wearables with access to the vehicle and stuff, that's being done at the moment. I've seen several solutions around where actually your wearable is your key. It could be a wristband or it could be a key fob. I think the rest of a lot of other ecosystems, so paying for parking or even pre-ordering takeaway and being able to drive up and collect it, or even ordering things online through your console and everything else, a lot of that will probably sit in the digital world rather than linked directly to wearables.
Sure. Do we have any other questions? Okay, so just in the middle here, please.
Welcome, thank you. My name is Andrei. I'm working for Novacard. So the question may be mostly for Valerie. You said about the tokenization as the only way to enable payment for wearables. Do you really think that it's not possible to use a traditional secure elements approach?
You mean a traditional secure element approach like you have on the high-end smartwatches or in the mobile phone, right?
In mobile phone we have two options actually. We have HCE, host card emulation, yes, and we have embedded secure element, for example, or we have NFC-enabled SIM cards.
So definitely there are several technologies for the contactless usage. You have this HCE, which is really phone implementation. You have in the mobile phone some secure elements that are connected to a contactless router, and then it's really enabling a lot of features, a lot of applications on top of that, but it needs power. It's more active solution, as we described. And then you have the banking card technology, which is just a chip connected to an antenna, and then it's contactless by himself. It does not need of any power, it does not need of any router. It will just do the job himself. So tokenization was already deployed in HCE in the second category I was speaking about, which was the telecom secure element, so the embedded secure element. And on the banking cards, it's just starting. And it has just started last year with MasterCard tokenization on some chip banking. And we are starting now with the Visa. And then you are opening, in fact, here we are opening all the tokenization systems to be supported in the banking cards. So it's really because the technologies behind the chip are different that we cannot mix together, all together. But after that, it's true that the service level will be the same. But the technology being different, you will have also a cost who will be different, and also an integration that will be different. So this is why it's important to, to categorize and to try also to have all the features around all the categories.
So you think these different areas, like a traditional approach and tokenization for wearables, could be completely different?
I think that the traditional approach to have tokenization on banking card, is that your point, or what?
No, I mean, if you speak about the traditional smart card business, right? It's a mass production, mass personalization, specific environment, equipment, and so on. For example, I have only one banking profile, and I can make millions of cards.
Sure.
But if I have a very wide range of different smartwatches or wristbands or any other form factors, they are different. I really don't understand how possible to personalize millions of wearable devices easily?
So this capability of personalization by taking abstraction of all the profiles you have on the field, because if you consider all the cards deployed on the field, you have many different profiles for the one bank, for second bank, and so on. And in terms of tokenization, it's true that you have only one. You have one profile for the Visa, you have one or just few, depending if it's gold, premium, something like that. But so this is a simplicity which is provided by the tokenization systems. So they are providing the payment solution, tokenization, and they are saying, okay, there will be just one profile. So you remove this complexity and this multiplicity of several profiles. And regarding the cards, so the cards are issued by the banks, so they have their own development. Regarding the wearables, they will be really generic, and they will be just able to support the generic profile provided by Visa, provided by MasterCard, that will enable the tokenization in it. So up to say that, okay, the banking card also will come with this tokenization, maybe not. This is not the purpose, this is not the concern. Here we are just trying to enlarge this wearable deployment, and for that, we need something which is bank agnostic or country agnostic in order it can be deployed largely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, the lady just next to that gentleman. That wasn't a very good description, was it? And over there too.
Hello, my name is Audrey and I work in financial services. And in banking sector this year, we will have the release of the PSD2 directive. And my question is, what do you think will be the impact of this directive on wearable payments? And how do you deal innovation and regulation?
Do we know, is there any difference between PSD regulations for wearables or for standard cards?
So my view is that the PSD2 regulations affect contactless. There are new limits and authentication requirements on those, so it's a broader piece that we have to, as a financial service institution, we have to address.
It's not something specific to wearables, it's...
Not specific to wearables, specific to contactless payment in general. And there are some ways to find solution, because you need to, at a time, as an end user, to prove that you are still here behind your wearable, like you are still here behind your contactless card. So there are some ways, but it's not linked only to the wearables. The particularity is that with a contactless card, you can just insert and tap your PIN. So with a wearable, you cannot do. So this is bringing a more complexity, but there are some ways and solutions to put in place, like through a mobile phone or through different systems. So, but it's something working on, and that is coming. But yes, we need to have solution and to think about.
Andre.
Yeah, and this is also where biometrics come in, of course. And so biometrics are addressing PSD2 and GDPR, which are really all about privacy and authentication. And is also, like I said, self-contained, which means that there is no central database. And in all these aspects, a biometric solution will address the requirements of both GDPR and PSD2.
Thank you. Does that help? Did that at least start to answer your question? Thank you. Do we have any other questions? There was somebody waving their hand a minute ago. Everyone's gone quiet. We mentioned the PSD2 phrase and everybody doesn't want to talk anymore. I was just, oh, please, no. Any other questions? Okay, well, we just have we're into our last few minutes of the session, but I was intrigued about the difference that it's going to make to be able to add people's actual bank accounts to analog watches through the watch straps, using technology like that Tappy's introduced. I was quite surprised when Barclays brought out the BPay. I have to say, I was thinking, well, we're in the UK here, who's going to adopt a prepaid account? But actually, the flexibility of the wearable format and the fact that you could put the auto top-ups in, actually, I was surprised how easy the experience was. But I guess that actually having a wearable tied to my own bank account should make a big difference in adoption, or do you think it's just going to be one of those incremental differences? Or
I think using a tokenization solution to add your card onto a device will make a difference to adoption, because people want that solution. But there's certainly a place for a tokenized world alongside a prepaid world. And we see a lot of use cases, I think you mentioned it yourself, around people giving it to their kids and monitoring spend and pocket money and their security because it's prepaid. We also get a lot of very positive feedback in the accessibility market. So people who may have sight issues or mobility issues, dementia or autism across a whole spectrum, actually using a prepaid account as a money management tool is extremely important, makes a massive difference in people's lives. And like you say, we have various features which allow you not having to log in to add funds all the time. You've got the same functionality. So I think the tokenization will broaden the market. It will bring more devices in, and we welcome that, because it's only going to drive wider adoption of contactless wearables and really grow the market.
Wayne, is that something you're seeing from customers in other countries as well, in terms of sort of being able to let your customers as a bank or also from the watchmaker's point of view, to be able to have my actual bank details connected to my wearable?
Yeah, so every country has their norm. Like, for example, in Holland, they're used to have debit cards with the Maestro cards. And in certain countries also, like in the US, in Canada, they prefer to use credit card. Prepaid card comes in handy, like what Rob said, like when you want to give this product to someone you trust, like your kids, to tap and pay, but you don't want them to overspend, and just so that would be a great product also. But tokenization doesn't limit what the type of cards, if it's credit, debit, or prepaid, you are able to provision that and tokenize that and push it into our wearables. So it really depends on the market need, and if you can, the adoption increases is only because you're able to use your existing accounts, and you don't need to recreate a new account all the time. So it would have been a hassle if you had to buy a new watch and create a new account all the time. So it's best that you can keep your own accounts and provision that and push that into the watch. So different countries has different needs, and I see that if tokenization allows that, it's going to be easier for adoption.
Brian, would you care to share from the watch manufacturing side of things? Do you think the fact that people are going to be able to start connecting their day-to-day bank account, or even just their preferred credit card or debit card, to a watch, rather than having to be tied with preloading funds? I mean, can you see that something that people are going, I suppose, going to help ease the adoption barriers?
Yes, definitely, I think so. My own personal view, it's about the inexpensive purchases and the convenience factor that's there. So public transport is a great one, and I know the Tappy guys are working hard on finding solutions that are multi-country, because of course, again, a lot of these, particularly with transport, there are so many different systems out there in all the different markets. So, but yeah, small purchases, the 7-Elevens, a sandwich, a coffee, public transport, this kind of stuff I think is the key, and that's going to really drive the adoption. Bigger purchases, for me, the jury's out, but again, with things like authentication, biometrics, then that of course makes people feel that much more secure about it. So yeah, it's a very interesting space, and we're looking forward to learning as we go. You know, it's we're going to be learning quickly, and I think the curve's going to be a steep one.
It does feel as though if we're not at a tipping point to mass adoption, that we're definitely at a tipping point towards, I would expect to start seeing a lot more news coming through of different banks doing tests of different wearables manufacturers bringing these out, even if it's only in part of their lines or in different sort of limited tests to start off with. It definitely feels like a different place to where we were a year ago, for sure.
Yeah, I would say the interest that we've seen from lots of different watch, jewelry, and other types of brands, sort of in the last 12 or 18 months has been significant, and we have multiple new partners and brands that we'll be launching in the summer that are confirmed. We're just working through those details. So there definitely seems to be, you know, we've been doing this for quite a few years, so I've been working with Wayne for a couple of years. And if we wind back 2 years, the conversations we were having with partners and brands was very different to what it is now. And there's a positive intent from people wanting to put this technology into their ranges.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're just sort of coming up to the last sort of few minutes of this session. Hopefully some of you are registered already. Tappy are hosting a drinks party this evening, to which I believe everybody here is invited. I might be about to get in big trouble if I got that wrong. But I think, Wayne, you did want to invite everybody to come along this evening as well,
yes,
if they would like to.
Yes.
And we're going to be joined also just to have a short panel. We've got panelists coming both from MasterCard and from ABN AMRO Bank, which I think will be a really interesting extension of the conversation we've had now. Whereabouts are the drinks, Wayne?
Yes, so it's actually the only event that's posted on the MWC portal, and hopefully many people will show up tonight, and it's going to be at the Nuclo restaurant, which is right at the south entrance, the main entrance pretty much, right beside, on the right side, the Nuclo restaurant. So everyone here obviously is invited, and it's a great time to network with industry experts to continue to talk about this interesting topic. So looking forward to see all of you there.
I think probably at that point I want to thank you all for coming along this morning and listening in, and for the questions that you've had so far. And thank you so much to Wayne for organising it, and to all our speakers and panellists. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah.